Welcome back to 60 Minutes. I'm your host, Jackson Tier, and I'm here with Hunter Nevels, nephew of former CEO of Firm A, James O'Gunneran.
Yeah, Jackson, of course. Thank you for having me.
Of course. I know it's been a while since running your uncle's automobile empire. How did you start into this business?
Well, this takes me back to a really hard time in my life when I lost my uncle.
Nephew, I think my time was up. There's a few things I gotta tell you before I go. First, I need you to take over Firm A for me.
What? Uncle, I can't do that. I don't even know how to run a business.
It's okay. You're gonna be great. We already have a 20% market share and a $1.2 billion net income. You've already had the platform to make it happen. Just go make it happen.
Oh my God, that's incredible. I promise I'll do the best I can to keep your dream alive.
Thank you. You're gonna do great things.
Wow, I'm so sorry to hear that. That must have been very hard for you.
Yeah, it definitely was. Not only was the passing of my uncle very difficult, but I also had to learn the automobile industry all on my own. In my first year, it was horrible. Out of all of my competitors, I was last in nearly every metric. We had a negative $3.3 billion in net worth, a stock price that fell from $35 to $9.50, and a market share that fell from 20% to 7.5%. So yeah, you could say I had a terrible first year as CEO.
Wow, sure sounds like it. But did you end up increasing those metrics?
Yes, I did, although it was not at first. You see, in my second year, I tried to focus more on new markets and preparing for the launch of our new Alpha minivan.
Ah, yes. I remember the Alpha minivan. I was close to purchasing one, but never did.
Oh man, that's a shame you never went through with that. The Alpha minivan was something my uncle stated he wanted in his will when he passed. He wanted to implement a differentiation strategy and a cost leadership strategy, but unfortunately, that led to us being more than $10 billion in debt.
How did you implement this strategy?
We focused on reducing cost of creating the Alpha and really tried to focus our marketing and promotional strategies on the Alpha minivan. We knew that we were the only company coming out with the new car, and we wanted to strike while the iron was hot.
Well, surely with all of this information you're giving me, you would have made a lot of money.
It's funny you say that, because on paper, we should have. I'm not quite sure what was going on in the marketing department, as somehow our Alec economy car received $0 for marketing and advertising efforts. As a result, we produced nearly 500 cars and only sold about 50 of them. This was all the start of our downfall in year 3.
Well, that makes sense. Did you decide to keep a similar strategy even though you were losing so much money?
Yes and no. We kept the cost leadership strategy throughout the next 7 years, but not for the reason that you think. Our only positive metric for the majority of my time running the company was our total market share. Even though I was told otherwise, I was scared to increase the MSRP on all of our cars because I simply didn't want to lose the only positive metric we had left.
Well, that just doesn't make any sense. Sure, I understand you want to keep the market share, but with prices this low, you'll never gain any revenue.
Yeah, I know. And unfortunately, that is something I had to learn the hard way. But it is also something that will never happen again.
Well, what about your differentiation strategy? How did that end up going?
Well, you see, it was going perfectly. We were the only company that was selling a minivan, and it was by far our best seller. We began to notice our debt decreasing purely because of our minivan making huge profits. That was until Firm C created the Caddy. This was their version of the minivan, and due to our lack of technological advances, the Caddy was a much better choice of a vehicle compared to the Alpha minivan.
I'm sorry for what I'm about to say, but I ended up purchasing the Caddy opposed to the Alpha minivan for this reason. It's much more technologically advanced, like you said.
Yeah, it appears like that's what most of our target audience did as well. Sadly, this once again was a good strategy for us in the beginning, but we didn't do everything correctly, so therefore our strategy ended up working against us in the end.
Is this a strategy you would implement if you had to do it all over again?
Yes, of course. As a matter of fact, I think this strategy was the only reason that we weren't $15 billion in debt. But if I had to do it over again, I would have made sure to keep up with the times and look further into what technological advancements our target audience wanted.
Speaking of target audience, who did you market to? I noticed that over the years your target market changed.
Yeah, so when we started in year one, we marketed our product to singles, high income individuals, and even enterprisers. However, this didn't last too long. Like I'd mentioned previously, we lost a lot of money due to our poor marketing and promotional strategies, and this time was no different. We didn't notice how important this was until around year four when we decided to change our target audience to value seekers, families, and high income individuals. Once we started marketing to them, we noticed our net income had risen and we were only 1.4 billion in debt as opposed to 6 billion.
Well, that sure is much better. One thing you haven't seemed to mention too much are your other cars, like the Alec, the Alpha, and the Ace.
Well, to start, our economy car, the Alec, was one of our more underperforming cars, and ultimately we decided to remove it back in year three.
Why would you remove a car? That doesn't make sense to me.
Well, at the time we thought it was in the company's best interest to keep costs at a low, and we thought that the best way of doing that was to completely remove our most underperforming car.
Okay, so you only had 2 cars to sell at a time. That doesn't seem like a good differentiation strategy to me.
Well, year three was the year we created the Alpha minivan, so we began to see no use for the Alec in our showroom.
Well, that makes sense. What about the Alpha? The Ace?
The Alpha was supposed to be the car that we made the most money on, and we made many technological advancements and even marketed the hell out of it. The only issue? Many of the other firms, like Firm B for example, just did a much better job than we did. They had a quick start on establishing a target market and they ran with it. We took too long to implement ourselves as a market leader and ultimately became much more of a follower.
I see. Before our interview, I noticed that many of the things you did with the Alpha followed very similarly to the Bofo.
Yes, we did, and it was because we were following the cloner title of being a market follower. We wanted to develop a car similar to the Bofo, but at a much cheaper sticker price.
And how did that work out for you?
Well, not great. While we did finish basically second in unit share, we were gaining absolutely no revenue on this car.
Well, of course not. With prices that low, you could never make a positive margin. On the other hand, how did the Ace perform?
The Ace came in second to last place, so no, it was not a good seller for us. However, more importantly, we were able to realize that the truck sold better in the South and the West, and as a result, we were able to improve market share a little bit on the Ace, but in terms of helping our overall net income, it didn't really do too much for us.
So it seems that none of your cars really performed like your uncle intended.
Nope, I guess not, Jackson.
One thing I was very shocked about, though, was how well your company handled the recession back 3 years ago.
Well, I wouldn't exactly say that. While our net income didn't decrease too much, our stock price was a measly $4 and our market share began to tank.
I mean, I guess you have a point. As we begin to wrap up, did you learn any important lessons during your time as CEO?
Yes, I can safely tell you that I learned many things that I should have implemented in my company much earlier. First, I should have seized my target market much earlier than I originally did. I also should have been more in tune with technological advancements. And finally, I should have focused more on being a market leader as opposed to being a market follower.
I agree. I hope within the next couple years, you can really turn this company around.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me, Jackson.
Of course. And tune in next week for our newest episode of 60 Minutes, starring Firm C.